I took the night shift at a gas station in rural Alaska about a month ago. I was 24 and trying to save money for college while living with my dad. The place was quiet, just me and the flickering neon lights. It looked eerie outside, especially with all those thick trees around. At first, it felt normal. I stocked up shelves and cleaned the windows. I waited for customers. But after a few nights, I noticed something strange. The gas pumps clicked on by themselves. No cars were around. I thought it was old equipment. But that didn't explain everything else. That I started looking at the security footage. I saw quick flashes on the screen, like something moved outside the camera's view. My heart started racing. I told myself it was just my eyes playing tricks, but I wasn't so sure. A few nights later, customers began sharing their own eerie experiences. One guy said he heard whispers from the trees while pumping gas. Another lady swore she saw shadows moving near the woods. They all seemed so scared, as if they thought I knew something. That I started seeing things too. Just out of the corner of my eye. I convinced myself it was exhaustion. Then I found fresh symbols drawn in the dirt near the pumps. They looked like warnings marks that made me feel uneasy. I noticed posters inside the station. The rules made no sense. One said, "Do not look outside after 12. Another warned, "Do not leave the premises." Customers paid and hurried out, like they were late for something important. I asked about the rules, but no one wanted to talk. It felt unreal. One night, I locked up and stood outside, staring into the dark. The wind rustled through the trees, making me shiver. Everything felt wrong as I turned back inside. That's when I heard it. A low whisper from outside. My heart raced. I checked to see if anyone was around, but the station was empty. That I moved closer to the window, squinting into the darkness. There was nothing. I thought about calling my dad, but something stopped me. Then I felt frozen. I thought I saw a shape among the trees. I blinked, and it was gone. I should have turned away, but I felt drawn to the glass. "Why are you still here?" The whisper came again. I turned around, my breath caught in my throat. I was alone, trembling in the dim glow of the lights. The fear washed over me like ice. I wanted to run, but I felt rooted to the spot. My mind screamed at me to listen to those rules, to not look outside, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was watching me. Night after night, I had followed the rules. But this time, I waited. I should have listened, but part of me wanted to understand what was happening. I stood there, my hands pressed against the cool glass of the window, the air thick with tension. The whisper hung in my mind. Should I ignore it or dare to listen? I felt a sick mix of fear and curiosity. It felt like the darkness wanted something from me, something that made the hair on my neck stand up. After what seemed like an eternity, I backed away from the window and shook off my moment of weakness. I couldn't let myself be swallowed by this madness. I grabbed a broom and started sweeping the aisles, focusing on the familiar task. But the clicking from the gas pumps continued, each sound sounding more and more sinister. Then, an unexpected noise broke through the quiet, a thud followed by a strange rustling. My heart dropped. I dropped the broom and held my breath, straining to hear anything else. The sound came from the back of the station, a place where I kept the cleaning supplies, but was usually too afraid to venture into alone. I slowly moved toward the source of the noise. With each step, I felt a tingle of dread crawling up my spine. The lights flickered overhead as I made my way, the shadows dancing like restless spirits. I reached the door to the back room and paused, my heart pounding. What if it was just a raccoon? Or worse? What if it was something I couldn't even comprehend? Taking a deep breath, I swung the door open. The air was heavier in there, stale and unwelcoming. As I stepped inside, I spotted something on the floor, a piece of paper, almost hidden beneath an old mop. I bent down, feeling my pulse quicken. It was a map, but not of a city or town. It had strange markings, symbols that looked familiar but felt off, like an echo of the drawings in the dirt outside. The map showed a path leading into the woods nearby. There was a circle marked at the end, along with a few symbols that resembled the warnings I had seen before. My instinct screamed at me to leave it, but I couldn't. This was a clue, a piece of whatever was happening at the gas station. Just then, the lights flickered again, more violently this time. I realized I wasn't alone. The rustling escalated, and without thinking, I rushed out, clutching the map tightly. My heart raced as I slammed the door behind me, locking it without looking back. That I was back in the main area, but the whispers returned, filling the air. "You shouldn't have looked," they said, echoing in my mind. Panic gripped me. I could almost hear the shadows creeping closer. I couldn't stay here any longer. I had to figure out the truth. But before I could think, I heard another noise, this one louder and more intentional. Someone was trying to open the front door. I froze. Had someone else come in? Or was it a different presence entirely? As I backed away toward the stockroom, I glanced at the window. The dark shapes in the trees were moving again, slowly creeping into my line of sight. I wanted to scream, to run, but instead, I just stood there, clutching the crumpled map. That's when I noticed the figure emerging from the shadows near the gas pumps. It was tall and twisted in shape, like it didn't even belong in this world. I gripped the map tighter, my breaths quickening. I felt a chill, knowing I was now trapped in a nightmare. And then it spoke, its voice slicing through the night. "Why did you stay?" I felt my stomach drop as the figure's voice echoed in the stillness. It was almost a growl, jagged and cruel. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but I was frozen in place. Did it even have a face? I couldn't tell. The shadows seemed to twist around it, making its form even harder to grasp. "Why did you stay?" It repeated, and I could feel the weight of its gaze as it shifted toward me. This wasn't just a question, it felt like an accusation. I could hear the door rattling, the slow creak of the hinges as whoever or whatever was trying to get in. I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. "I didn't mean to. I was just curious," it said, its tone dripping with mockery. "Curiosity will cost you dearly." I stumbled backward toward the aisle, eyes darting for anything I could use to defend myself. The map crinkled in my grip, but I couldn't just stand here. The door rattled again, more urgently now, and I reminded myself that my escape was just behind me. I had to reach the back exit, but I wasn't sure if that would lead to safety. Suddenly, the rattling stopped. The air was thick with silence, stretching like a taut wire. I heard the faint crunch of gravel outside, then a low whisper that danced at the edge of my hearing. "Tell them. You must tell them," it said, almost pleadingly. "Tell who?" I shot back, my heart racing. "What are you talking about?" But the figure only shook its head if it had one. With a rapid motion, it raised an elongated arm and pointed toward the woods beyond the station. Something in that gesture sent a bolt of terror through me. The shadows shifted like they had a mind of their own, closing in. I have to go," I stammered, ready to bolt past it and out the back door. I felt the weight of the map pulling me back. It was an invitation to a path I hadn't chosen but now felt compelled to follow. Just then, the front door swung wide open, creaking as if greeting the darkness. A gust of frigid air gusted in, sending the flickering lights into a frenzy. My escape route was open, but the figure was still blocking the aisle. "Stay!" it thundered, and for a moment, the whole world seemed to shudder at its command. The windows rattled, and I could hear the distant echoes of whispers rising around me. In a moment of clarity, I bolted toward the back. My plan was to escape into the woods, to take my chances with whatever lurked outside rather than face whatever this creature was. The whispers rose to a crescendo, a cacophony of voices urging me to listen, to obey. I couldn't do that. My only choice was the unknown. That I threw the back door open, the cold air hitting my face like ice water. The trees loomed ahead, the path from the map winding into their depths. I hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Was it too late to turn back? But the figure's voice echoed in my mind. "Find the circle." It shouted, the sound chasing me as I raced out into the night, leaving the gas station and whatever I had awakened behind. That's when everything went dark. I stumbled through the darkness, branches snagging at my clothes and slicing through the night air. The chill seeped into my bones, but I couldn't stop. I had to get away from that gas station, from the twisted figure and its cryptic warnings. The only light was the sliver of moon above, casting glimmers through the trees, each beam a flicker of hope. Then, as I pushed deeper into the woods, I tripped over something, a root or a rock, I couldn't tell. I fell hard against the ground, the wind knocked from my lungs as I gasped for breath. I rolled onto my back, waiting for the panic to surge, but instead, I heard something. A faint humming, strange and melodic, drifted through the trees. It was almost comforting, but I knew better than to trust it. It surrounded me, creeping closer, pulling at the edges of my fear. I scrambled to my feet and pressed forward, trying to evade the sound. Suddenly, I spotted it, a luminescent light flickering through the trees like fireflies, but brighter, pulsating in a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the buzzing noise. Against my better judgment, I followed it. My heart raced with a mix of dread and curiosity. It felt important, like it might lead to answers. As I approached the source of the light, the buzzing intensified, vibrating through my chest. I pushed through a thick cluster of branches and stumbled into a clearing. In the center stood an enormous stone circle, intricately carved with symbols I couldn't decipher. Each stone shimmered under the moonlight, exuding an energy that was both alluring and terrifying. I edged closer, the light flickering brighter with each step. Then I froze. There was something in the center of the circle, a small object, shining under the moon like a beacon. My breath quickened as I recognized it. It was the compass I had brought from the gas station. How had it gotten here? Before I could think, a chilling laugh erupted from behind me, slicing through the air like a knife. I spun around to face the shadowy figure from before. It stood at the edge of the circle, its outline cloaked in darkness, but its eyes glowed with an eerie light. "You've come to the circle," it said, voice dripping with amusement. "Now, you must decide." "Decide?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "Decide what?" The figure took a step closer, and the shadows around it writhed as if alive. "To stay here, amidst the whispers, or to return to the world of the living, forever changed. Choose wisely." My heart pounded in my chest. I was no longer just running away, I was being drawn into something I couldn't fully understand. The choices lay before me, heavy with consequences. And that's when the light dimmed, flickering as if it had taken a deep breath. Something in the air shifted, thick and suffocating. I could feel it pressing against me, an unseen force pulling me in both directions. "Don't let them take you," the figure cautioned, its voice now a low growl. "This is just the beginning." I stood stuck between the promise of the unknown and the looming terror. The map's importance gnawed at my thoughts, and I wondered if it contained the key to a deeper truth. Panic and urgency clawed at me. Then, with a sudden clarity, I realized that the choice I was about to make could change everything. I took a step forward, driven by instinct, as the light swelled around me. But before I could decipher my decision, everything spun violently, and then everything went dark again. I blinked awake, disoriented. The darkness was alive with shadows, but they felt different now, more solid. I lay sprawled on the cold earth, the stone circle looming around me. The compass, a tangible point of familiarity, was now beside me, its needle spinning wildly in all directions. I quickly sat up, scanning the area. My heart raced as I listened for any hint of the figure. It was gone, but the air was tense, as if it were holding its breath, waiting. I pushed myself off the ground, the dampness chilling my skin. What had just happened? Had I really seen the figure? I felt like I was caught in a dream I couldn't wake from. There was something more pressing, though. The humming was back, now softer but persistent, a gentle nudge toward the center of the circle that I stumbled forward, drawn back to that mysterious light. As I reached it, I noticed the symbols on the stones were glowing faintly. They flickered like the compass, almost reacting to my presence. I hesitated. Should I touch one? Should I even be here? That's when something shifted beneath my feet. The ground trembled slightly, a low rumble echoing around the clearing. My eyes widened as I looked down. A network of cracks had formed, spreading out from the stones, shimmering with a strange light. I took a step back, alarmed. The shadows seemed to crawl higher along the stone circle. Panic surged in me. I had to make a choice, but which one? Returning to the world of the living felt far away, distant and unwelcoming, while staying here felt like rushing headfirst into uncertainty. Then I heard a voice, thin and fragile, whispering from the cracks. Help us, escape. Free us. Who is there? I called, my voice trembling. 1,000 questions flooded my mind. The figure? The whispers? I felt trapped between realities. The voice continued, darker now. You summoned us. Summoned us? I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. I hadn't summoned anyone or anything. Yet the energy around me surged again, squeezing tightly, forcing me to remember. That uneven trip to the gas station, the strange old man, the compass. I was part of this. Somehow. Just then, the ground heaved once more. I lost my balance and fell, my hands digging into the cracks. What was happening? Desperation clawed at me. I needed to stand, to make a choice before I was sucked into whatever was churning beneath, and just as I pushed myself up, the whispers grew louder, a cacophony rising to a deafening roar. Fear gripped my chest, and in a moment of instinct, I grasped the compass, feeling the friction between my palm and the cold metal. That's when I saw it, a shadow darting behind the stones, retreating quickly. My breath caught in my throat. I was not alone. The realization flooded my senses. There was something or someone else in this circle, and it wasn't just watching that I and the chaos. Clarity broke through. I had to escape, not just from the circle, but from whatever horrors were lurking within it. With my heart racing, I turned to sprint away from the stones, but the ground heaved harder, and fear pushed me forward. Choices, decisions, and shadows collided as I crossed the threshold of the circle, hoping to leave it all behind. But deep down, I knew I was not free yet. As I ran, I glanced back one last time. The whispering intensified, echoing in my ears. Something was waiting to follow me, something dark and relentless. I burst through the edge of the circle, the cool air hitting my face like a slap. I stumbled forward, my legs shaky. Heart racing, I glanced back at the stones. The whispers faded, but the feeling of being watched didn't. I took a deep breath, but it felt sharp in my lungs. Get it together, I muttered to myself, forcing my feet into a steady pace. The dense trees loomed around me, their branches twisting as if they were reaching out. I wanted to run, to escape, but the weight of what I had just experienced anchored me in place. My mind raced through the events, the figure, the humming, the whispers. I had no idea what I had walked into, but instinct screamed that it was far from over. I found myself looking over my shoulder, hoping not to see anything, but dreading not knowing. To regain my bearings, I turned back to the path leading to my car. The darkness pressed in around me, and the rustle of leaves underfoot felt unnaturally loud. My fingers tightened around the compass, and I realized it was still spinning, the needle whirling as if trying to tell me something. When I reached the road, the trees opened up to reveal the gas station, the flickering neon sign struggling against the night. The normalcy of it felt strange after what I had just endured, like stepping back into a dream I didn't belong to anymore. I hurried to my car, heart still pounding. I fumbled for my keys, glancing nervously around. Something in the shadows beyond the station felt alive. I blinked and it was gone. I took a deep breath and opened the car door, the familiar smell of leather and gasoline calming me slightly, but as I jumped into the front seat, the car's interior suddenly felt stifling. I glanced in the rearview mirror, nothing but darkness. I turned the ignition, the engine roaring to life. I was ready to put distance between myself and that cursed circle. That's when I saw the light. A flicker from the gas station door caught my eye. It swung open, and a figure stepped out, silhouetted against the glow. My breath caught. Was it the same figure? Had it followed me? I leaned closer to the windshield, trying to discern more. The figure moved closer, the light illuminating features. It wasn't he, the man I saw before. This one looked familiar. The realization hit me, this was the old man I met at the station earlier, the one who had warned me. "Hey! Are you alright?" I shouted, but no sound came out. My throat tightened. The old man looked right at me, his expression grave. "You mustn't linger here," he yelled, his voice husky with urgency. "They're searching for you." Panic jolted through me. My fingers went to the compass again, the needle spinning even faster. "Who is searching?" I yelled back. He pointed toward the trees, and for the first time, I noticed them. Shadows swirled and twisted, moving closer. I felt my heart sink. I had to decide, stay and face whatever was coming or drive away and risk bringing these horrors with me. Then, the shadows surged forward, rushing across the ground like smoke. Time slowed. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, adrenaline surging. I hit the gas, tires screeching against the pavement. But just as I sped away, the last thing I caught in the mirror was the old man's eyes, his warning etched on his face. That I tore down the road, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was racing towards something far worse than I had just escaped. And in that unease, I knew the night was far from over. The road blurred beneath me as I sped away, my pulse pounding in my ears like a war drum. I had to focus on the lane ahead, but my mind was fractured. I could hardly breathe, and the knots in my stomach twisted tighter with every accelerating mile that I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. Who were they? What did the old man know that I didn't? It felt impossible to piece it all together. I glanced at the compass again, it was still spinning wildly. The unease crept back in, every shadow along the side of the road pointing fingers at me. I gripped the wheel tighter, desperate to keep control. The dim light of my headlights barely cut through the thick darkness enveloping the forest. Each passing moment felt like an eternity. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, something was waiting for me out there. As I entered a small clearing, I spotted a weathered sign, "Next gas, 50 miles. Panic washed over me. My mind raced. No choice but to keep going. I needed to reach civilization, somewhere I could breathe without the weight of unseen eyes. But was I really escaping, or only running deeper into a trap? The radio crackled to life, static interrupting the silence. I turned it down, irritation flaring. I didn't have time for distractions. Suddenly, something flickered in my peripheral vision. I glanced out the window. Was that a figure by the side of the road? A chill crept up my spine, but I blinked, and it was gone. My stomach dropped. "Just keep driving," I whispered, trying to quell the rising anxiety. The trees seemed to close in around me, black shapes looming as I navigated deeper into the wilderness. Concentrate. That's what I needed. Concentration. The night felt heavier, more oppressive with every passing mile. I caught sight of my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked haunted, eyes wide and wild. I had no idea what was happening, and that frightened me more than anything. Then my phone buzzed on the passenger seat, vibrating violently. I ignored it, not wanting to distract myself further. But it kept buzzing, and a sense of dread gnawed at me. What if someone was trying to reach me? I couldn't let myself get distracted. Not now. After what felt like an eternity, I spotted a dim light in the distance. Hope surged within me, but my relief was short-lived. As I approached, I realized it was another gas station. This one looked worse for wear, barely illuminated. The flickering lights felt eerie, each blink reminding me of that grim circle I had escaped. I pulled up and threw the gear into park. Checking my surroundings, I caught sight of the gas station's windows. They looked dark, almost shadowed. There, in the corner of my vision, I thought I saw movement inside them. My heart stuttered. What if it's just my imagination? I asked myself, doubting my sanity. But the moment I stepped out of the car, I was met with an unsettling silence. Nothing stirred. No one came out to greet me. That I walked toward the entrance, the crunch of gravel beneath my feet echoing in the quiet. Halfway there, an overwhelming sense of dread settled in my gut. That's when I saw it, a symbol etched into the door frame, familiar yet foreign. The moment I recognized it, a hush fell over the night. I froze as a sudden wind swept through, and I heard the whispers again, the same haunting tones from before, echoing from spot just beyond the trees. My breath hitched, realizing I hadn't escaped after all, and then, the door creaked open, slowly revealing a dark figure inside. The figure stepped into the soft glow of the gas station light. A man, tall and gaunt, with deep-set eyes that regarded me with an unsettling curiosity. Something about him felt wrong, as if he didn't quite belong in this reality. "You're a long way from home," he said, his voice a gravelly whisper that sent shivers down my spine. That I struggled to find my words. "I just need gas," I said, forcing confidence into my tone even as doubt flickered in my mind. I was alone, and I had no idea what kind of people operated in places like this. I stole glances past him into the dim interior, searching for any sign of life. The shelves were lined with dusty snacks, but the faint stench of decay lingered heavily. He stepped aside, an invitation laced with something darker. Slowly, I approached the entrance. There was no one else in sight, no attendant at the register, and the overhead lights flickered like they were struggling to stay alive. The whispers from the woods felt louder now, hollering secrets through the rustling leaves. "Do you have a phone?" I asked, praying for a connection, something to tether me back to sanity. "No use," he replied, a toothy smile creeping across his face that made my blood freeze. "No service out here. Haven't you heard? It's not safe for wandering souls." "Wandering souls?" I echoed, a knot tightening in my throat. The last thing I needed now was someone feeding my paranoia. "Right. You look like you could use a few rules around here. First, always listen to the whispers. They know things." He leaned closer, his breath rancid and warm against my skin. "Second, if you see someone in the woods after dark, don't stop to look, just keep driving." Panic surged within me. What was he talking about? No one else was supposed to be out here but me. That doesn't make sense. He straightened, his demeanor shifting abruptly from friendly to intense. Doesn't have to make sense. Just stay safe. Just keep away from the trees. That's the most important one. Before I could respond, the lights flickered again, plunging the station into darkness for a heartbeat. I stumbled back, heart racing. The whispers grew louder and then faded into an eerie silence. The man seemed unbothered, his eyes reflecting the dim emergency exit light like the gaze of a cat. "Come for gas, yet scared to fill up?" he asked, a mocking tilt to his voice. Something in his tone snapped my nerves tighter than before. With adrenaline coursing through me, I stepped outside, needing to get away. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching every move I made. I focused on the gas pump, fumbling with the nozzle as I tried to calm my breathing. Just as I began to fill up, I heard a rustle behind me, followed by a low growl. The hairs on the back of my neck shot up. I turned slowly, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows, but there was nothing. Just darkness. I finished pumping gas and looked back at the door. The man stood there, rigid, staring into the forest. I followed his gaze, heart hammering. Another figure stepped into the faint light of the station, a figure that looked eerily familiar. As recognition hit me, my breath caught in my throat. I realized then that my nightmare had only just begun. And that whispering? It felt like it was calling my name. I could hardly comprehend what I was seeing. A face I knew too well, yet it felt warped under the station's flickering lights. It was Kayla, my college roommate. We had lost touch after graduation, but there she was, wearing an expression of frightened recognition. The kind of look that spoke of shared secrets and unspoken dread. "Kayla?" I managed, my voice trembling. There was a lump in my throat, a mixture of relief and fear. Why was she here? And more importantly, why did she look so terrified? "Emily!" she exclaimed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." What did she mean? I just needed gas," I stammered, glancing back at the gaunt man, who now seemed more like a predator, watching us from the doorway. I felt exposed, trapped between the man and the darkness of the woods. "Get in the car. Now!" she urged, her eyes darting nervously around. The tension in her voice sent adrenaline surging through me. Before I could respond, the whispers erupted around us, louder now, swirling like a sinister storm. "Kayla, what is happening?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. "He says they can find you," she said, gesturing at the man now blocking the entrance. "He's part of it. The woods, they don't let you go." A chill settled over me. I remembered his warnings. Stay away from the trees. Listen to the whispers. But how could these ominous phrases relate to Kayla? To me? I took a step toward her, but fear took over. "What do you mean? Who is they?" "Please, just trust me. We need to go," she insisted, glancing toward the tree lean. The rustling had returned, and now it was not just a whisper but a chorus of voices growing louder, echoing in mocking rhythms. I felt drawn to them, almost a compulsion to listen. Then, the man smiled again, that ghastly grin spreading across his face, revealing teeth that glinted like knives. "Running 1T help, dear," he said, his voice a low growl. "The woods will have their way." Kayla grabbed my arm, and without thinking, I bolted toward my car. The moment I reached it, I fumbled to unlock the doors. The beeping seemed loud in the thick air, a countdown echoing through the heavy silence. I climbed into the passenger seat, but before Kayla could get inside, the growling sound erupted again from the trees. It was no longer an animal sound but something more guttural, more alive. Kayla froze, her face pale. "Emily, get out. I can't leave you. Get in," I yelled, horrified by the urgency in my own voice. But as I turned to see the man closer, another figure emerged from the woods. This one was not familiar, but it radiated a terrifying energy. Shadows clung to it, twisting as it drew nearer. With a deafening roar, the figures from my nightmares collided into reality. That was when I saw it, a flash of something silver in the darkness, glistening like a promise of doom. "Get in." The command broke from my lips again as the realization hit me, I had to escape. But the door was suddenly yanked shut, trapping Kayla outside. I screamed her name as the shadows surged, pulling her away from me, merging with the whispers that enveloped the gas station in a sinister embrace. And the whispers? They were calling her name too. The world around me transformed into chaos as anguish surged through my veins. I yelled, my voice swallowed by the cacophony of the dark woods. "Kayla!" But it was futile. The shadows enveloped her, twisting with unsettling speed, drawing her into their clutches. I felt my body freeze as the figure of the gaunt man stood resolute, a wicked smile playing on his lips. "Stop!" I screamed, my heart hammered in my chest. I couldn't do anything but witness the horror unfolding before me. The shadowy tendrils coiled tighter around Kayla, shrouding her. The whispers grew frenzied, a chorus of torment echoing through my mind. I slammed my fists against the dashboard, helpless rage coursing through me. I couldn't lose her like this. If I stayed here any longer, I would be taken, too. I turned the engine over again, praying the vehicle would cooperate. The roar broke the stillness of the night, and with one last desperate glance towards the chaos outside, I slammed my foot down on the accelerator, tires screeching against the gravel. It was a leap of faith straight into the unknown. The gas station faded into the distance, swallowed by the forest behind me. I barely got a glimpse of Kayla's figure disappearing into the night, tendrils of darkness enveloping the space she had just occupied. I kept driving, past the flickering lights and the echoing whispers that followed me, blending into the roaring engine. But the further I went, the more I felt their presence in the shadows of the trees. Were they still watching, lingering just beyond the edges of the road? Every glance in the mirror sent chills racing down my spine, the darkness still clinging to my skin. I was escaping, yet far from free. After what felt like an eternity of driving under the oppressive weight of uncertainty, I finally spotted a flicker of town life, a diner's neon sign glowing in the distance like a lighthouse. I didn't even think as I turned towards it, heart pounding in anticipation. As I drove into the parking lot, I could still feel the echoes of all that had happened. I stumbled into the diner, disheveled and breathless. A few patrons glanced at me with a mix of curiosity and concern. I could feel the eyes upon me, each one holding stories of their own, perhaps echoes of the night I had just endured. I grasped the counter, trying to catch my breath, gathering my scattered thoughts. The waitress moved closer, her eyes bright with curiosity, but I just shook my head in response to her unspoken questions. "Just coffee, please," I managed to choke out. As I sat at the counter, the familiar smell of coffee brought me some comfort, but inside, I was a storm of emotions. The unease curled around my gut. My mind replayed the moments over and over, the creeping darkness, Kayla being pulled away, the gaunt figure's taunts. I had escaped, yet I felt the whispers still swimming in my mind, promising that this wasn't over. After what felt like forever, I drew out the compass from my pocket, its needle still spinning erratically. I had to understand what was truly happening. What power did that place hold? It seemed fate or something darker had drawn me into this chaos. Before I could delve deeper into these thoughts, I felt a presence behind me. I turned slowly, my breath catching as I recognized another familiar face. It was the old man from the gas station. His expression remained serious, dark lines of worry etched on his face. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, concern thick in his gravelly voice. "They know now. You need to leave." Fear gripped me as I searched his face, looking for understanding. "What do you mean?" "They took Kayla." I felt the weight of desperation rise, chasing away the air in my lungs. His eyes darkened, understanding my pain. "It's not just her. It's all of them. You have awakened something." He gestured toward the door, and instinctively, I looked outside, half expecting shadows to converge upon me. "Get out of here while you can. They want you back," he murmured, his voice a low, urgent whisper. "Where do I go?" I felt lost, frankly terrified. "What do I do?" Before he could answer, a gust of wind blew through the diner, the whispers riding on its back, leaving an icy sensation in its wake. Then, just as quickly, it receded, pulling away its ominous shadows. "Trust your instincts," was his final warning as the streets outside darkened. The weight of the night pressed in on me again. Everything I once knew felt unhinged, that I realized then that even in my flight, I would never find true safety. Shadows lurked beyond the edges of my sight, vengeful whispers echoing, leaving an unsettling truth hanging in the air. I could run, but the past didn't let go easily. As I stepped back outside, I grasped the compass tightly in my hand, its spinning needle quieting ever so slightly. I didn't know what lay ahead or if I would ever reconcile with the truths of that shadowed circle. The haunting whispers faded into the night, but one thought remained clear: I'd have to confront what was waiting for me, whether in the woods or in the darkest corners of my mind. I moved toward my car, uncertainty woven into the night. Whether I was escaping or following a fate woven in shadows, I still had yet to find out. And deep down, I wondered if I would ever truly understand what was happening, or if some mysteries were best left unsolved.